Welcome to Lesson 6, Measuring Volume in Cubic Centimeters. Volume is the amount of space that a three-dimensional shape takes up. It can be measured in cubic centimeters. So here's an example of a three-dimensional shape. You might call it a box shape, but the correct mathematical term for it is a rectangular prism. So if we wanted to find out how much space the inside of this rectangular prism takes up, we would measure its volume. Remember back to our lesson on area, when we want to know how much space a flat shape, such as a rectangle, takes up, we measured its area, but now we're talking about three-dimensional shapes, and these three-dimensional shapes have a length, a width, but also height. That's the third dimension that we have added. So once again, the length and the width that you're familiar with, so you can see that the bottom of this rectangular prism is a rectangle, but now we've added height. We've given it a third dimension, so now it sticks up off the page, off the table. That's why it's called three-dimensional. So let's take a closer look at what a cubic centimeter actually is. So here we have a cubic centimeter, which is simply a small cube, which is a type of rectangular prism, where the length is 1 centimeter, the width is 1 centimeter, and the height is also 1 centimeter. So the volume of a cubic centimeter is 1 centimeter cubed. So in area we use the little 2, because we multiplied two dimensions, length and width. In volume we use a little 3 because there are three dimensions, length, width, and now height. And the formula for calculating volume is simply length times width times height. So this is a key formula to know. Remember it. So to get the volume of a cubic centimeter, if we take 1 times 1 times 1, the answer is 1. So here we have a rectangular prism that's made up of cubic centimeters. So our job is to calculate its volume. We could simply go through and count how many cubic centimeters there are, or we could apply our formula. So pause the video for a moment and see if you can count how many cubic centimeters you see in this rectangular prism. So you counted that there are 10 cubic centimeters. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top row, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the bottom row. Let's see if we could figure out the dimensions, the length, the width, and the height of this rectangle. If we count the length, we see that it is 5 centimeters. If we count the width here, it's not very wide at all. It's only 1 centimeter wide. The width is the thickness of it here. And the height, right there, is 2 centimeters. So if we apply our formula, which is length times width times height, we get volume equals 5 times 1 times 2. And that, if you were to punch it into your calculator or do it in your head, would equal to 10 cubic centimeters, which is the same answer that we got up above here when we simply counted the cubic centimeters. So here's an example for you to try. We have a rectangular prism made up of cubic centimeters. Go ahead and use either of the strategies we talked about to calculate its volume. Pause the video, come back when you are ready. So the first thing that you probably did was calculate the three dimensions, the length, width, and height of this rectangle. And you found them to be 5, 3, and 2. Next, you may have remembered the formula, which is volume equals length times width times height. And if you apply that formula, you get 5 times 3 times 2. And so the volume of this rectangular prism ends up being 5 times 3 is 15, times 2 is 30 cubic centimeters. You may also have counted the cubic centimeters, although that's a little bit trickier because you can't see them all, but you would have counted that there are 15 here in the top layer and realize that the bottom layer just doubles it, and so you end up with 30 cubic centimeters. So in this lesson we learned that volume is the amount of space that a three-dimensional shape takes up, and we learned that three-dimensional shapes have, such as rectangular prisms, have lengths, widths, and heights. We learned that cubic centimeters can be used to measure volume, and a cubic centimeter is simply a little cube with a length of 1, a width of 1, and a height of 1 centimeter. And we also learned how to calculate the volume of different rectangular prisms. We learned that the formula is length times width times height. And we tried a couple of examples where we applied the formula to calculate the volume of the rectangular prism. We also learned that we could simply count the amount of cubic centimeters inside the shape to get its volume. So have fun working with volume and measuring volume in cubic centimeters. Ask your teacher for help and watch the video again if you need to.